Welcome to the Gold Standard here on the 440 Sports Network, brought to you by Sinkers Beverages. That's Emma Lingan. I'm Braden Gall. You guys are in the comments. Let's go. Emma, what's up?
What's up? When did you get your power back?
Right to content, Emma. Let's get right to content. Barry Trotz is resigning. He's retiring at some point in the near future. We don't know when. We don't know how, but it's happening. Yes, I do have my power back. Thank you for asking.
Sorry for taking an interest in your life before we head right into content. But
right to content, Emma. We got to get to the content. Going to get to the content. Look, you guys are excited about this. I think fans are excited about this. I think there are lots of questions that need to be answered, and we will try to spend time today, Emma, asking and then projecting potential answers to said questions throughout the course of the entire show. We absolutely want all of you to be involved. So subscribe on YouTube, 440 Sports, of course. You can get to us there, and 5 stars on the podcast app of choice, and share it on Twitter and Facebook right now, this very second. Tell somebody about the show. You can follow Emma's work, of course, all over the internet, and you can get to me at Braden Gall on the socials. And yes, my power is back. 11th day without power. We got back in this morning, got up real early and drove about an hour to get the kids to school on time, and then immediately came home and started fixing our house. So I am here. I'm wearing a t-shirt, which means for the first time in almost 2 weeks, it is warmer in my house than it is outside, which I think is how houses are supposed to work. So I'm back and better than ever. Yes, the thermostat is at exactly where it should be, 68 degrees, which is perfect in my marriage. That's our number. Sinkers Beverages, everybody, please go support good local business. If you are in Nashville and you have been involved in this winter storm in any way, it is going to affect the small businesses in your life. So please, please, please go support those small businesses. Sinkers is one of those small businesses, but so many other ones are as well, including a lot of great local craft beer breweries and tap rooms, all of which you can buy at Sinkers Beverages. But if you want to go to the tap room, I suggest you do that. According to science, Emma, it is good for you to go have a couple beers with people you know and people you don't know. It is how civilization was formed. That's a true fact. As my 9-year-old would say, true facts, Dad, true facts. Which, again, I'm a little concerned how that fits into our massive media ecosystem where a fact has to be a true fact as opposed to an untrue fact. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Sinkers Beverages, support good local business. Search Uber Eats, have the booze delivered directly to your house. I'm going to see if I can do this all, Emma, like as fast as I can, and then you can react to it, and then we're going to get into the real subject matter. And that is Nashville beat the Islanders 4-3 on the road after losing 5 out of 6. Then they come back and they beat St. Louis 6-5. They are 20-11-2 since the Florida game, which was the game after Barry Trotz lit into their ass publicly with the Tennessean article. They got destroyed 8-3, and they have been that good since then. Roman Josi has 19 points in his last 11 games. Filip Forsberg has 14 points in his last 11 games. Ryan O'Reilly has 53 points in 55 games. Stamkos has scored 23 goals during that period of time, that 33 game period. He has 36 total points. They are 6-3-2 in their last 11, in those 11 that I'm talking about. They will play Minnesota on Wednesday and Washington on Thursday before the Olympic break. Do you have any interesting commentary about anything that has happened on the ice in either this last week, in the last month, in the last 33 games? What do you got? Anything?
No. I mean, I think it depends what qualifies as interesting. In light of other events that have happened in Predators land this week, I would say none of it's interesting. But I mean, Roman Josi's been playing good hockey. Steven Stamkos has been playing good hockey. That's not interesting. It is just the truth. And that is really all I have to say about that.
Yeah, that is about it. So lots of you guys already in the comments, very, very active in there. And we're going to get into, obviously, most of this is going to be about Barry Trotz today. So I wanted to get that out of the way first. It's all out of the way. So my power's back. Sinkers is a great small business you should support. And Roman Josi's good at hockey. All right. Are we good? What was your first reaction when the news breaks? Elliot Friedman reports it first and foremost, and then it starts to get out. We know the press conference is at noon. What was your first reaction?
Oh, I mean, I think that's actually what I said out loud, was, "Oh, that was, not what we were expecting on a Monday morning in the middle or at the beginning of February." So it was definitely unexpected, nothing that we had prior insight to, as media members. I think that it was surprising that and then my thoughts went to immediately, "Oh, I hope he's okay. I hope it's not health related because of the sudden timing and the nature of it." At no point did it cross my mind that, "Oh, maybe he wants to go back to coaching," but apparently that crossed a lot of people's minds to the point where Barry felt the need to address that rumor immediately at the start of his press conference, saying, "I'm not going back to coaching." However, he did also say it's not health related. And not, it didn't seem like a family emergency or anything like that, which was kind of my immediate wonder, which is why I didn't want to speculate on anything until after we heard from him. So,
Well, and I have a lot of questions about the press conference in general for you. So I think we should kind of work through that and the timing of it all, because that does lead to all of the important questions. And is there anything in the press conference that stands out to you that you're not buying? And I don't mean that in like a intentionally that they're trying to be intentionally misleading, but sort of in the like must lie situation or must spin situation. One of the three of them significantly better at spinning than the other two. Um, Particularly the one, Sean saying, "Oh, the organization is better off than when Barry Trotz got here." I understand what he means by that. I disagree with the organization, the big club being better than when he got here. I do agree that the farm system is significantly better and that the future could be better. And that is probably how we will judge Barry Trotz's short tenure as the general manager. But is there anything up there that, Governor Haslam talks about the reason we did it right now was transparency. The reason there was no connection between the performance of the coach and the team with the decision for Barry Trotz. Anything in there that you want to maybe, I don't want to poke holes is not what I'm trying to get at, but like, did any of it feel like spin to you?
Yes, but certain things did, certain things did not. I think, first of all, he had a comment about Barry did about how, in response to the whole "why now" thing, he said, "Well, you guys," meaning the media, "are just really good at your jobs. It was going to get out anyway."
Yeah.
To anyone listening, how do you think insiders like Elliot Friedman get this information? It's because it is intentionally leaked to them from someone in the organization. It's not something that like, "Oops, I overheard it, while I was getting coffee this morning." It's all very intentional. It's all very calculated. So again, total speculation on my part. I wonder if maybe not entirely, but at least in some way, if the timing of this was meant to maybe alleviate some of the pressure on Barry Trotz, take some of the heat off of him for, whatever moves he may or may not make at the trade deadline, which I don't know if that's necessarily a good move to make, but it's a thought that I have. I think it was something that I did think it was interesting because they talked so much about, "Yeah, we're doing this now because we wanna be transparent. It's about transparency. We don't wanna be out there actively looking for someone without letting our fans know what's going on." Fair, fine, when they said that, I'm like, "Okay." But then right after that, Sean Henry says, "But we're not answering any more questions about this. We're not gonna talk about who we're interviewing. We're not talking about it again until we hire someone." And it's like, "Mm, what?"
Yeah.
Like that goes completely against what you just said. So I think like I understand what he's saying. I understand why you wouldn't want to address rumors because it's a distraction to whatever's going on the ice, whatever. But I think that would maybe be a little bit more important if this team was actually on the precipice of something great, which quite frankly they are not right now. So I don't know how much of an off-ice distraction it's gonna be. Maybe, just a thought, if you didn't want it to be an off-ice distraction, don't spring it on your players and coaching staff at 8:30 the morning of a game. Just a thought.
I do think timing is a chunk of this conversation to start, but let's lay out some of the facts. Of course, as of right now, Barry Trotz has a winning record. as a general manager. 77, 74, and 13 is the record the last 3 years, 2.5 seasons. If you count the playoffs, 79, 78, and 13 by one game. Obviously, they'll play a bunch of hockey games before he technically is retired. They're going to hire CAA, which is an agency to help with the search firm of it all, which is, I actually think search firms get a bad rap in all sports for the work that they do. They do the grunt work, the boots on the ground, background checks, the physical logistics of getting things organized and presented to people. They are not the ones they don't really make decisions on any of this stuff. They interview the team, find out what the team is looking for. Then they find out who they want to talk to. They go out and they handle all the grunt work of it all. Is Barry Trotz and the Predators and Bill Haslam, although Bill Haslam might actually have people in every corner of the country. When it comes to college football, for example, you have to search in all 50 states for somebody, and you cannot physically be in all 50 states, in all communities, to find out background information and do interviews with personnel around these characters. So search firm, I think, is a good idea. Inside of that, I'm going to call it the executive committee, right? It's going to be Governor Haslam. It's going to be Michelle Kennedy. It's going to be Segerin. It's going to be, I assume, Sean Henry and Nick Saban and Barry Trotz. I think that's the core of it. There might be some other personalities in there. I don't know how I feel about them saying Jeff Kelty, Scott Nickel, and Brian Poyle. I hope they interview. It seemed very backhanded from Sean Henry, but it is what it is.
I have a lot of thoughts about that.
We'll get to the inside-outside organization. That's a big topic.
Well, I also think, just to add to the timing part of the conversation too, I didn't mention this before, but I think it's worth saying. Everything that this organization does, it's very calculated, especially when it comes to leadership transitions. Not that there's been much leadership transition, but if in the one that we have seen from David Poyle to Barry Trotz, remember David Poyle announced, it was around this time, it was probably January, when David Poyle announced that he was going to be stepping down and that Barry Trotz was going to be coming in, so as to create a somewhat smooth transition. And it wasn't just like at the end of the season, well, see ya, and then Barry Trotz comes in. I think they wanted to do it, so there would be some kind of overlap. And then when Bill Haslam said, we plan to have someone, or we hope to have someone by the deadline, or not the deadline, by the draft, I think that was part of it too, is like, okay, so we'll just give them a warning. Because it feels like, Trotz went to Haslam in December, and said, I think I'm done after next year, after my contract is up. And Haslam just said, well, I mean, he didn't say this. I'm speculating that it was kind of like, well, then let's get out ahead of this. Like, let's get the show on the road here and try to find your replacement.
That's what I was going to kind of lay out for folks. He goes to Haslam in December and says, I think I'm going to retire. The retiring would not happen at the end of this season. It would happen at the end of the 27-28 season, at the end of his contract. And honestly, I was listening to Gover talk on It's All Your Fault. Go check it out. And he had a conversation with Barry after the press conference. And even in his press conference answer, he's using the word like mortality a couple times. Like, he's using words that clearly a guy, first of all, it made me go, maybe there is something going on with his health, but that's just pure reaction to his commentary. But it does sound like a guy who's clearly torn on his priorities. And that is one, I don't think anyone can say anything about when a person decides to end their career in whatever it is they're doing. I don't think I've seen that. Certainly not from any of you guys in our audience. I think most everyone's like, no, you have the right to decide when you retire. And if he retires to spend time with his family because that's his priority, like, great, go for it. I mean, more power to you. If that's what coaches and players want to do, like, I don't think we have a right to tell anybody what to do with their lives or their careers. I find it fascinating. I would love to know what the conversations were like, not between Trotz and Haslam, although that would be interesting. Between Haslam and Sean Henry around around strategy and around how to roll this out. I would love to know what both sides were saying about this. My instincts are, is that this was probably scheduled for a few days earlier, for probably last week or maybe even earlier, and the storm took over, and you cannot do this announcement in the middle of 200,000 people without power, because you're going to be, you're just going to, even if it's not meant to be, it's going to look real bad and real tone deaf. So I think they certainly waited to I think they waited to the last possible moment, and they knew it was going to get out, and somebody got it that's respectable, that has like a ton of national attention, and they knew that they had to go for it. So I am curious though, because the other major element of the timing is the Olympic break, which is 2 games away. There's going to be 16 to 18 days where rosters are frozen, and no other general managers can, quote unquote, gain ground on you, the Predators, if you are using those days to search out candidates and not scout rosters. Because no, you can scout rosters, but you can't negotiate, you can't trade, you can't do anything. So my thought is that gives them a big chunk of time where they don't have to focus on their own roster and their own team, and they can go out and they can truly focus on a search. What are the odds of them hiring someone before the deadline? Seems virtually nothing, unless they really love the GM version of John Hines, who just recently is not employed. Like, you can't go hire an assistant GM in the middle of the year. So I don't know what the timing is so fascinating to me.
I think it's important, and forgive me, I can't remember exactly what the quote was, but Elliot Friedman was talking about this, after his initial report. He was talking about it, and he was talking about how much outside interest there would be in this position, from around the league, which
another question,
just because the interest is there doesn't always mean it's mutual, but I know we'll get to that. I will say, in that discussion, he said something almost kind of offhanded, but it stuck with me, about how the NHL is a June 30th league. And to me, that said something about like, okay, because Haslam said we want to have a hire made by the draft, which is the week right after that. The June 30th league comment, I think, has a lot to do with that's when you can actually talk to other GMs or other executives around the league who are currently employed by another team. That's where you can actually, of course you can talk to those guys beforehand, and they will, but as far as making any, on the phones, texting, calling, whatever. But I think in terms of actually making any sort of announcements or making any sort of real hires, that will happen June 30th, or after June 30th, if it's someone who's currently employed, which is why I see a lot of people saying, oh, they should go get Kevin Adams, which, God, why would you think that? But also, he's not currently employed, I don't think, by another NHL team. So I think that is just something that stuck with me, that I would keep in mind, that I do believe they're going to look outside and they're going to talk to people, but they can't actually do anything. So that could be too, honestly, as I'm saying it out loud, that could be part of why they chose to announce it now. So it doesn't seem as sudden when it happens, July 1st or whatever it is, June 30th, when they hire someone, so they can be like, hey, we've actually been planning this for a while. I don't know.
I actually believe them around the transparency comment. I actually think that is what they think, what Barry Trotz probably wants. Like, hey, I've made this decision. I don't want to walk around like this all day, every day, and not bring it up. Everybody in my family knows that I'm going to do this. So I tend to agree with them on that. It's still odd, exactly right after a winter storm and after a crisis in the city, but right before the Olympic break and then the deadline. It does feel very convenient, which again, that's really smart messaging and strategies. I think the organization spending the next 16 to 18 days to truly flush out what they are looking for, whether that's strategy meetings inside, whether that's putting out feelers to talk to other options, and most importantly, what do they think of? Because, like, here's the thing. I do believe them. One of the things I believe is Barry Trotz is going to do what's best for the team. Whatever he thinks is best for the team might not be what's best for the team, as we have seen a number of times in the last 3 years.
But to your point, he's not going to intentionally, blow it up and leave. Like I do agree with you.
Yeah, like he's not going to do anything that he doesn't think is trying to help. The question is whether or not another general manager looks at the team, the roster, Milwaukee, and the big club and says, these are the 8 moves I would make if I was in charge, and I sure hope Barry does all of them. Like, that's the problem we're in here right now. And again, I went back and looked at all of my footage from the hiring of Andrew Brunette press conference, because I had a chance to talk to David Poile and Barry Trotz after that press conference, and I wanted to know about the process. I wanted to know, like, who officially made these decisions. Because remember, Barry Trotz didn't take over as general manager until July 1st, June 30th league, right? But the announcement came for Poile's retirement, I think, in February. And they made all kinds of moves up to the deadline. And when I asked David Poile specifically about these trades and about the firing of John Hines and the hiring of Andrew Brunette, it was all Barry Trotz, even though he wasn't technically the general manager. And that process, frankly, the Hines to Brunette process was not smooth.
That was messy.
It was very messy. It was I'm a first-time GM learning on the job kind of vibe is what it was. And David Poile was very clear with me. He said, because at the very end of my conversation with him, which wasn't very long, I basically just said, so let me be clear. Like, do you have to actually sign the paperwork to make all these things happen? And he's like, yes, I have to sign them because I'm the general manager, but Barry Trotz made all the decisions. So that's where I have that in the back of my head, thinking through how they actually go about making decisions on Michael Bunting and Eric Halla and Steven Stamkos and Michael McCarron and draft pick capital and going to get some pieces versus going to sell some pieces and swapping players. And it's so messy now because we know he's not going to be the guy to try to lead the team into the future. It could be the totally right decision. And I think many fans probably think it is the right decision for Trotz to step away, especially if his heart's not in it. No one's going to fault him for that. But factually, this is an extremely rare situation again. Firing Peter Laviolette to hire John Hines in the middle of the season is a very statistically rare situation. Doing what they did at the deadline with Trotz and Poile was a very rare and statistically different situation. They are once again doing it that way, and I don't know if there's another way they could have done it.
Well, I mean, again, it comes back to the timing question, but I think if you look at like St. Louis, Doug Armstrong announced before the start of the season that he's retiring after this year. So now you get a whole season to be like, okay, he's stepping away. And they had named his replacement. Again, all of this happened before the season started. I think that's the way to do it. That's the way to be like, to have some kind of continuity here, to make it not messy, and to like understand that, in that way you're being transparent with the fans, but you have a very clear plan in place. This mid-season stuff, the cynic in me, because we have seen it happen so many times, maybe not so many times, but we've seen it happen with things like the Poile to Trotz transition, and then firing Brunette or firing Hines and going to Brunette. That wasn't mid-season, but the timing of that was very weird because they let John Hines twist in the wind for way too long for that to happen, theoretically, because Brunette was with New Jersey and New Jersey was still in the playoffs. But all of this is just very like, it does scream like, do you guys know what you're doing? Like it seems very messy and very like, we're gonna get out ahead of it and we're just gonna announce it before it gets out. It feels rushed. It feels not very thought out.
One of the things Trotz told me specifically after that press conference back in 23 was, and I'm paraphrasing here, but man, if we didn't get Brunette, I'd have been totally comfortable with Hines. And I'm like, what? Like, it's not that that's not an accurate sentiment, right? But you cannot say that publicly.
No.
You can't. Not for John Hines, not for Andrew Brunette, not for the fans, and not for yourself. And again, he was learning on the job. That's not a quote you should be giving somebody in the press the day you hire a new coach.
Barry's candor, a blessing and a curse. Right. A blessing to all of us, probably a curse to him. Right. But yeah.
Shawnee says, I got to run, peeps. Hope to see you guys at the game tonight. Answer my questions, Braden. I'm going to try to get to all the comments here in a moment because all the major questions we still have not gotten to yet. These are more procedural stuff, right? I don't love how this is happening. I don't love that it's such an unusual situation. I don't love that it's happening right before the deadline, where a lot of critical decisions have to be made about the future of this franchise, and we don't know who's going to be making them long term. We know in the short term, Barry Trotz will, I guess, do his best, which best case scenario has been a mixed bag of decision making, or at least an inconsistent track record of decision making in his short tenure as the general manager. So it's just, to your point, it doesn't give you confidence that everything is being run well. Now, here's what I will say, and I'll compare it to the Titans on this. When the Titans fired Rand Carthon, everyone was screaming about how disorganized the team was. I can't believe this dysfunction. How could the ownership group come in and do this again? What are they? They're going to set themselves back even further, blah, 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 blah. It was the right thing to do because you had to cut bait. You had to eventually, you had to stop the ship going in the wrong direction to get the ship going back in the right direction. And while it felt dysfunctional, firing Rand Carthon was, and the rest of the people underneath him, was actually the move that started the new process. Now, there's been mistakes in the new process, but that was, and I had it on good authority that was what they had to do behind the scenes to build an actual professional front office for the Titans. And I'm not saying that every parallel is the same here, but I do feel like if Trotz is not in it and his heart's not in it and he's not going to be making decisions, and we'll get to what this means for players and coaches, but like this might feel dysfunctional, but now with a singular owner making decisions, and potentially with the draft, the farm system already restocked, if you go hire the right person to make all the right decisions, which I think the Titans did in this analogy when they went and hired Mike Borgonzi, that is kind of what matters here. If you the process could be FUBAR, but if you get the right person to run the team, this decision in this moment will kind of be viewed as the beginning of the new process and the end of the old process, if that makes sense.
It does. And I will take that one step further. I think if you're talking about, finding the right person for this job, to run the team, all that is true. But I think this moment in franchise history presents you, the Predators, with an opportunity to not only overhaul your hockey operations. I think it can't stop there. It cannot stop there. I mean, I just know from working within the organization that, and this isn't unique to the Predators, mind you. This is just how sports franchises are. But I mean, you have two sides. You have two sides of the house. It's, the hockey ops side, and then there's the administrative arena, that side, the business side. Those two sides have to be rowing in the same direction all the time in order to build a championship culture. If you want to actually be serious about being a professional sports franchise and not just an entertainment venue in town, you need to have both sides rowing in the same direction there. That has to be the goal. And I'm not saying that you can't do both. I'm just saying that right now, up until this point, the focus of the organization has been largely skewed in one direction. They won't admit that publicly, but it's the truth. And I'm not saying that's inherently bad. I'm just saying that that's the fact. And so I think if you're going to make a change in hockey operations, which obviously you are, if you're going to be changing your GM, it's not just about who the next GM is, because the next GM could have all the best ideas in the world on how to make this team better. But if the other side of the house isn't in lockstep with that all the time, then it doesn't matter. So that's why, you can't stop at changing GM. I mean, to me, honestly, that means you move on from Sean Henry, you move on from Michelle Kennedy. I'm not saying that those people have failed at their jobs or that, they're the problem. I'm just saying this is an opportunity for you to completely revamp everything and just get a fresh set of eyes, fresh set of people who aren't just doing it because this is how we've always done it.
And I would put that in the same boat as the Kelty Nickel and Brian Poyle situation.
For
all
sure.
three of them could be fantastic candidates for general managers. All three of them could be the right guy for the job. I don't know. I don't think it's the right time to make that move.
Yeah,
And so
it's not about whether they're qualified. Of
Right.
course they're qualified, but it's
Right.
about fit, and it's about this
Right.
time, this juncture in the organization's history. And I think that, you know, even the optics of it, of going with someone in-house, would be so bad for this team. And again, that is not a knock on them and their qualifications. It's just the fact of the matter. So I think that, you know, if any of those guys has real ambition of being a general manager in the NHL, and I do think they would all be qualified to do so, it would need to be with another franchise.
Yeah. So let's try to get to some of these questions, and then we'll answer some of the bigger ones, which involve how attractive is this job? What does this mean for Andrew Brunette? And most importantly, what does Bill Haslam want out of his hockey team? And the last point I'll make on what you're talking about is sort of the cleaning of house. This also ties into the Titans. Part of the reason the Titans made so many poor decisions is that non-football people were making football decisions. And what I'm curious about in this situation, unfortunately, the people who have the most hockey knowledge are Kelty, Nickel, Brian, and David Poile and Barry Trotz. Because the people who do not have, like, I'm talking hockey knowledge. Governor Haslam is not a hockey person. Sean Henry is not a hockey person. Michelle Kennedy, not a hockey person. Like, these are not hockey people with hockey expertise. Brilliant marketers, brilliant strategists, brilliant business managers and owners, an average politician. You know, there's people who have unbelievable expertise in other places. And that was the same thing in the Titans decision-making room. It was Burke Nihal, a lawyer. It was Amy Adams Strunk, an owner and an oil heiress. It was, Bryce Wasserman, the son-in-law who married the daughter. Like, they didn't have a football expert making football decisions. And Mike Borgonzi has now become the football expert in the building, making all the difficult football decisions. So I don't mind.
And they give him the power, the authority to make those decisions.
So I don't have a problem with Trotz being an ear to bend here, or or even David Poile being an ear to bend here, or the three people in charge of their respective departments at the top of the front office being a part of the search. Although I know that those three will not be. Nick Saban, brilliant CEO. At least he knows football or knows sports and knows like the X's and O's stuff. But he has no experience in hockey. He can't look at two coaches and say he can look at leadership, and he can look at control of a locker room, and he can look at these kinds of things. So strangely enough, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, Nick Saban might actually have the most experience of anybody on that search committee right now in making a hockey decision. So that is a major concern to me. But it's why they have to lean on CAA.
That's why I'm nervous about this. And for people saying, well, Barry Trotz shouldn't be part of the decision. Like, he shouldn't, if they're trying to look outside the family, they shouldn't be including Barry Trotz. No, of course they should, because as you just mentioned, he's one of the few people that actually knows anything about hockey and what is going to be, the best hockey decision. So much of what this organization does, it's always been about keeping it in the family. It's been about, like low risk tolerance, just keeping everything in this same internal ecosystem. And they have, for the entire existence of this franchise, they have done what is most comfortable. And comfortable is not going to win you Stanley Cups. And it hasn't so far.
This is the opportunity to reframe your organization. You have a chance to do that here. And I think that is critical that they take the opportunity. And this is what I meant. Even if Sean Henry is brilliant at his job, and even if Brian Poile is a great potential GM, and even if Nickel and Kelty deserve the chance and are qualified and should get the job, it just doesn't feel like the right time to do more of the same thing. It feels like a time to reframe, reshape, rebrand as an organization. Bring in, look, to be a great general manager in professional sports, it's like being a great athletic director in college athletics. You need to be a little gangster. And I love Barry Trotz, but he ain't gangster. No. And you got to have some street cred and some gangster in you if you want to be a brilliant general manager. David Poile has more gangster to his game than people realize.
Oh, yeah.
For being a really nice chocolate-eating, wine-drinking fella. who's quiet. He's got some gangster in his game.
Real G move in silence. That's David Boyle. That is David Boyle.
You got to have some gangster. So we'll get to a lot of these questions here. I'm going to try to answer some of yours. I know Shawnee was asking about the search committee being investigated by the NHL. I'll admit I do not know most of what you're talking about there, but if you chip in a few dollars, your comment goes right to the top. So I did not see anything that the NHL is investigating the use of CAA. CAA is generally, like, search firms or agencies are generally just facilitators.
Yeah, it's a talent agency. They're headhunters.
Yeah, it's about putting people in touch with each other rather than, but again, could they be violating certain communication rules and laws? I assume they all are.
Yeah.
Like, everybody has a phone. Everybody has each other's numbers. They all text. It's no different than a transfer portal in college athletics. They all are exchanging information. So we shall see. Let's see here. I want to make sure we get a lot of these comments. I know you guys have been pouring into the comments. So please subscribe on YouTube, thumbs up, notifications turned on, etc. Kevin says Trotz won't even get to see the guys play for him. Patrick says sometimes you just wake up one day and realize that you're missing a lot of things at home. Shawnee says you can't negotiate, giant air quotes on that one, with the players. I agree with that. Our GMs and executives also represented by CAA. I would assume that there are plenty that they kind of represent everybody. Shawnee also says that Nickel would be a good choice, but only if he gets an overhaul from some of the scouting and development staff. I don't necessarily disagree with that. Let's see here. Nate says, sorry if I'm late to this, but how do I feel about Trotz helping with the GM search? I understand he wasn't fired, but it's strange to have the current GM helping to find the new one. Everything is strange about this. Everything is strange. I actually don't mind him being in the room.
David Boyle helped find Barry Trotz. Like,
well, let's see how well that went.
I know, but I'm saying it's not like this is unprecedented.
They have to have hockey IQ in the room to look when they get to, because it's not about casting. It's not about the wide net. Hopefully they cast a wide net and they bring in a lot of candidates and they interview a bunch of people. But when you get down to 3 guys who are all probably equally qualified and talented, it's very fine margins on who's better and who's the right choice.
Because again, like, the other people on the administrative side, very good at what they've done, very good business and marketing minds. But like you said, this is an organization that needs to be recalibrated in terms of their priorities, because they have been so focused, whether they want to admit it or not, the main focus has been branding the arena, marketing the game day experience, just leaning into that side of things, which they have done very, very well. And that is why Bridgestone Arena is, a renowned venue. That's why Smashville is, as a brand, exists. It's because they've built that up. So no one is saying that needs to go away. But I think now that's the one area of strength that you have. You need to recalibrate your priorities and focus more on just competitive urgency rather than, the entertainment optics. And that is why I'm okay, as you said, with having Barry Trotz part of the conversation. I'm okay with David Boyle being part of the conversation, because those are the people who understand. I just hope that their inputs are listened to, because again, if Sean Henry and Michelle Kennedy are, and I'm not saying they are, I'm just saying hypothetically, if they're the loudest voices in the room, I don't feel good about this at all, because that's going to be more of nothing changing. So I just, that's just to hammer my point home about how GM can't be where they stop.
All right, Sinkers Beverages, everybody go support good local business. Sign up for the In Crowd, which is one of their customer appreciation groups. They do not hit you with a bunch of communication. They will give you like 1 or 2 or 3 emails a year, and they'll say, hey, we got a really cool opportunity for something here, so come on by and support and pick it up. It's generally like really high-end, rare bourbon picks or barrel picks, and a super special on Beaujolais wine. That's a thing that matters. I didn't know that. In November, apparently. They got the THC corner. They got non-alc. They got a award-winning craft beer fridge where you can get East Nashville Beer Works. You can get Jackalope, Black Abbey, Yazoo. You can get Tennessee Brew Works, all the best local breweries. distribute their beer there. So please go purchase some local brews at a local liquor store. It is a good way to support more than one local business at the same time. And while you're listening to this, another small local business, we do appreciate that. So support good small local business in 2026. And especially after the last 10 to 12 days, if there is a restaurant or establishment in your area and you can afford to spend a few extra dollars at that location this week and next, please do so. Their margins are thin, and 10 or 12 days without revenue is a big deal. It's a big deal for those businesses. So please support good small local businesses. Keep those dollars circling inside the community instead of being sent elsewhere, which is like kind of the opposite of the Preds GM search. Like, I want the GM search to be big corporate GM search. I want them to go somewhere else, look at all these experts, and get the best one to come in with fresh eyes, fresh perspective, fresh vision for how to build a team, and come in here like a gangster and do the things you have to do. That means you can't. It's not about personal feelings. It's not about, oh, the fan base loved this prospect. It's not about that. It's about, you got to make tough decisions. So first question is, how attractive is this job if you're a general manager, in your opinion, Emma?
I think it depends on a lot of what I just said about, you need to, what a lot of people don't see from the outside is how much the administrative side and the hockey operations side are not in lockstep on how this organization needs to move forward. So I think it could change quite a bit if you make changes on the administrative side in terms of how attractive this job is, because whoever this organization has been so attached, like emotionally attached to its history and to, past decisions, which I'm not saying is a bad thing at all. That's how you build a culture. It's how you build a fan base. I get that. But to your point, you need to be a little gangster. And I think bringing someone in who is, from within,
I don't
is
give a
not,
shit.
they're
He
not.
walks into a room and he says, I don't give a shit. We got to do the right thing here.
Exactly. You got to be cold-hearted a little bit.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you're a bad guy. It just means that is what this organization needs. So
got to make tough decisions.
I think it depends on how much, and this is something I genuinely don't have the answer to right now, but I think it depends on how much leeway he's going to be given, he or she is going to be given to come in and make this decision or make these tough decisions, because I think on the surface, it would be a very attractive opportunity because, it's a team that's it's a competitive division. It's a franchise. It's a non-traditional hockey market where in theory that means less scrutiny from the fans and the media and things like that. So that's all good for a GM. It is, it's very easy in terms of recruiting free agents and such to come play. Very easy to market Nashville as a city, as a place to come play. So from that perspective, I think that is where you really need to get someone who is a hard ass to come in and actually make the tough hockey decisions. But as far as how attractive this job is, it depends on if he is given a blank check. If you let him come in and say, go fire, hire whoever you want, then it would be very attractive. But I don't know if he's going to get that.
I agree with that, and that certainly could be the reason somebody says no to the opportunity. But if you're backing up from that particular element of it and you're going, all right, you got some cap space, you've got a loaded farm system, you have a ton of draft picks, you have a coach with at least some data to evaluate him, meaning you can choose, hey, I think this guy really does have something. When they play well, they have these long stretches of good hockey, and I think he can continue to grow into a good coach. Or you've got enough data to look at him and say, this is not the guy I want to run my team. So you have some freedom to decide what you want to do with the head coach. Cap space, draft picks, farm system, freedom to pick the coach if you want to. Nashville is a great city. The arena is spectacular, as you pointed out. The fan base is not all that hard on you, with all due respect to most of you diehards in this show who are very upset with things and very probably excited about Barry Trotz leaving. Most of the fans are not like you guys. Most of the fans are like, oh, Tuesdays are fun at Bridgestone. Oh, yeah. Thursdays are fun. Saturday nights, occasionally a Sunday. It's kind of fun.
And if the team isn't doing well, they just shift their focus to something else.
Yeah, they go somewhere else. Titans fans are like that. This whole city is like that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's actually no income tax. You're going to make lots of money as a general manager of the Preds. No income tax in the state of Tennessee. There's lots of attractive elements to this job. So I think they can go out and get very good candidates.
Yeah.
If they're willing to go get an outside candidate who wants to reframe it and redesign and rebrand or whatever term you want to use for the team, they have to be able to do it in their own vision. And if they're given that freedom, I think you can attract very good candidates to this job. That ultimately, what does that mean for Andrew Brunette, in your opinion? If I am anyone in that locker room of every player and coach, the one I am most concerned is if I am Andrew Brunette.
Yeah, I think Andrew Brunette should start packing already if he hasn't already. Again, I think that you've got enough, as you said, you've got enough data on him now to know that, and even if you're still like, well, the jury's still kind of out on him, that's probably your answer at this point on that you need to move on from him. So I think that, the one thing that was keeping him in that job was Barry, maybe not the one thing, that's not fair, but one of the primary things keeping him in that job was that he was Barry's guy, the guy that he handpicked. And they were, they came in at the same time and he trusted him. And Barry was seemed very personally invested in developing Brunette as a coach. And to our earlier point, you bring in a thug, a gangster, doesn't give two shits about Andrew Brunette and his development as a coach, then I think you can just look at the numbers and say, "Oh, yeah, no, let's move on."
Yeah. And again, if you are given the freedom to come in and implement your vision for an entire hockey operation, why would you not be bringing the coach you want in with it? Whether it's the wrong decision or not? Like it might not be the right decision, but you're going to bring your guy. So
that's the one thing, when we're talking about how much freedom is this person going to be given to make these decisions, I think we all know that's the one position he's going to be given all of the freedom to make. And so, of course, that seems like the most obvious one.
Logan says, I could see Andrew Brunette keeping his job until the end of his contract, which is the end of next year. If they hire a new general manager on June 30th or thereabouts, I imagine that either comes with an announcement of an extension for Brunette or that Andrew Brunette has been fired. That's what I would guess. There's no way they're going to give him a 1-year trial. I can't imagine they're going to do that.
They'll be nice and let him resign on his own terms.
Sure. Or, whatever the next step is for him.
Yeah.
I think that ultimately that leads to the most important question of all of this. And some of this is on us as a city and a market. It's not a new question for the market. I think it is a new question for Bill Haslam. And that is, what is your goal? What is your primary goal in all of this? Right now, this team, you and I have spent every episode for the last 2 months saying how extraordinarily average but entertaining this hockey team is. They are an average hockey team. Right now, they're a winning hockey team, at least over the last 33 games, 20, 11, and 2. They win more times than not. They are providing tremendous entertainment. I think somebody earlier in the comments joked about how you just need to tune in starting at the third period, and you're going to see really good, fun, entertaining hockey. Maybe not good, maybe not really good, but fun, entertaining drama, which sports is entertainment first and foremost, especially in this city. You need to provide entertainment value, provide engagement, keep my eyes on the screen. That's what you got to do. And so the question is, are you okay being what they used to be? Which is, hey, we're going to make the playoffs most years. We're probably not going to go more than one round, maybe a second round. We're going to win more times than not. Your time as a fan at Bridgestone Arena is going to be fun and entertaining. You're going to have a good time. Your kids are going to like coming here. And you're going to see a winning hockey team with a couple of star players and probably a 7th or 8th place finish in the Western Conference. That will make Bill Haslam and the Predators organization tons of money and buy them stability. Is that what they want? Or are they willing to put up with things that are uncomfortable to try to compete for a Stanley Cup championship? And that is ultimately up to one person. And that's what makes this different also than past decisions that this organization has decided on and underwent. This is now one dude's decision. And if Bill Haslam says, tear it all down, I want a cup, some of you will be very happy about that. And they need to go about doing that because he's the boss. if he says, we've got some veterans here, I want to see if we can make the playoffs, that's going to be more of the same. And so it ultimately is all about what Bill Haslam wants for this organization. And as a follow-up to that, it's what do you all want as a market? Because if you all demand Stanley Cup championship competition and going after that, then you got to speak with your actions. And to me, I just don't know if the market wants it, and is willing to put up with things. And I don't know if Governor Haslam is willing to put up with the uncomfortable things that you have to put up with to try to build a championship.
I agree. I don't know that for sure, but if we just look at the press conference with Barry Trotz, Haslam didn't really sound like a guy who wanted to come in and tear everything down. Now, that could just be, he's being respectful of Barry Trotz and let's make this his moment and about him. That's fair. That's fine. But I just, when you're talking about what the market wants, I think you're absolutely right. The market, unfortunately, is not the small group of diehards that are, the people listening to this show. It is whom we love. But it's the city, and it is just like you said, the media market, things like that. I think that they want entertainment. And they would rather do what's comfortable than, actually make uncomfortable decisions to go and win a cup. And I think that if they're obviously they're never going to come out and say it this way, but I think that the thought process is kind of like, if we happen to win a cup on top of that, great. Like, of course you can say, yeah, that's the ultimate goal, to win a Stanley Cup, because that's all 32 teams' ultimate goal. That is not a declaration of a winning culture. That is just you being an NHL team. That's just what it is. So I think it's literally the bare minimum that you're trying to win. Yeah. So I think that when you look at what the market demands, and the market in Nashville does not necessarily demand, like we've just gotten through saying, the market, meaning the fan base, is not going to be incredibly hard on you. If if they don't like what's happening, they're just going to pay attention to something else. As long as you stay slightly above average, or even average, even in this market, Bridgestone Arena is right on Broadway. You're going to make money. You're going to rank in the top 5 in attendance, no matter how the team's doing. It's an entertainment town. It's a destination. So visiting fans will come and they'll make a weekend out of it, but it's not, then you are just doing more of the same, more of what has gotten this franchise to where they are, which again, that was important when you were an expansion franchise in a new market. That was very important. That was very important to, kind of establish the footprint for Nashville in the hockey world. And that's how you had to think. But right now, you're not an expansion franchise anymore. I mean, you are, but it's been 25 plus years. And so I think you have to shift a little bit. And even if you talk about like, well, yeah, this team has had on ice success. Look at 2017. I can't believe I'm the one bringing up 2017. But even if you look at that, though, that was a big case of get in and see what happens. And that's kind of how they treat winning in this, the franchise the way it is now. And there have been too many people who've been here through all of it. And continuity is important, and I think loyalty is important, but it also comes at a cost. And I think that you're now seeing that just sort of general ambivalence in the market that comes from all of that.
Nate said, very well said. Nate says, based on the press conference, Haslam doesn't seem comfortable to do what it takes to win. Kevin says Haslam didn't sound like a tear it all down kind of guy at the press conference. Jesse says, I want a Stanley Cup. However, the front office seems the best way to go about it. Then so be it if they have the best way to go about it. Eric, I doubt Haslam has the stones to tear it down. And to be honest, I can understand that to a large degree. There's another take on it. Goal is the Stanley Cup, says Jesse, but just seems everyone comes to Nashville to retire. Kevin says, yeah, pen and pencil is done. Put some shit in Sharpie for a change. P. Houston says, everyone says they want 2017, but won't go through the pain to be able to have the 2017 for a decade. I think that's very well said, to be honest. Let's see here. Patrick says, I do wonder if this team with Brunette gets better with high energy younger players over highly skilled older players. Have to choose players or coach and then go hit. I think that is what we've been discussing, frankly, with Andrew Brunette for a very, very long time. Let's see here. Let me see here. Okay, so here's I want to ask you about baseball for a second to tie it in, because a lot of folks that cover baseball will say the Dodgers and the Padres and the Angels and the Mets aren't the problem as much as the teams who aren't spending enough of their revenue to be competitive. Now, I understand both arguments, and I'm not really even going to include the Dodgers in this because they're like on another planet. But there are so many teams, and you'll see why I'm going here, right? It feels like in baseball there is a problem with a team that makes $400 million in revenue and spends $100 and puts $100 million back into their roster. That is a problem. That it creates just as much disbalance and unbalance in the sport as it does when one team can go buy every great player. Both are bad. And I think owners in sports like hockey and baseball see that revenue number and say, we can make it go further if we don't spend as much on our roster. Now, baseball's different, no salary cap, etc. But I bring that up to say there are plenty of owners who are just fine cashing big old checks with an average football, basketball, baseball, or hockey team. And that could be what Bill Haslam is fine with. And I was talking to some folks, and I texted you this question too. I was just like, who wanted the rebuild here? Because my first reaction when I saw the news was there's a disconnect between Barry and Bill on which direction the franchise should go. And that was my initial thought. Like, oh, Barry's kind of done with this. He's either about to tear it all down, and Governor Haslam's like, no. Or he's not willing to do what it takes to tear it all down. And Governor Haslam's like, if you're going to retire, you got to get out of here so we can tear it all down. And I don't really know which one it is. The thing that I was told was, if you look at, read between the lines on Barry's conversation with the media and with the fans, which is, as the weeks have gone on recently, he has been more willing to admit publicly this is not a playoff team and that everything is on the table and that he sees things a little bit more for what they are. I don't know if that means there's actual disconnect between what he was going to do and what Bill Haslam wants him to do or not. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't really know what the question was in terms of baseball, but the
question is like,
could saying.
Just that there's there's owners that are like totally fine being at the bottom of a sport and making a bunch of money.
Bob Nutting, Pittsburgh Pirates owner. Literally. I mean, because again, like you said, it's different. There's a salary cap in hockey, but if you take the players out of it for a second, every team can spend the same amount on the players on the roster, but just look at how much of the money, and this is something I don't know, I don't have numbers in front of me, but how much of the money is going into the game day experience, marketing the arena, selling tickets to concerts, things like that, versus the hockey amenities, the facilities for players. I will tell you what, and Barry Trotz was the biggest proponent of this. Centennial Sportsplex is an abomination. It is embarrassing as an NHL practice rink. There are literal rats running through that place. It is old. It is not updated. Like it is embarrassing. And I know
I thought Sean Henry said that that's all been fixed in the last 3 years.
Yeah. They bought a new Zamboni. That's all they did.
They've taken some baby steps, and I would call them baby steps. Now there is an agreement. There's an agreement to renovate Centennial Sportsplex almost.
Yes, but having been to every other NHL practice facility in the league, Centennial Sportsplex is embarrassing.
Yeah,
it is so embarrassing. And so again, that is just one example. I'm just talking about, how much of your revenue are you pouring into the hockey product? That doesn't necessarily mean player salaries, because we know there's a salary cap, but how much are you putting into it's just like in college, right? When you want to improve your facilities because that's going to be better with recruiting and things like that. I think that you have to that's a big part of this too.
I could not agree more with all of that. I think ultimately we can end on this Sinkers Beverages, and that is we can end on Sinkers Beverages. No,
Sinkers Beverages. Have a good week, everyone.
I do think that we are not going to be able to define the Barry Trotz era for a little while, because if the new general manager works and I would say new coach, the new era, whatever that includes.
Did you catch Bill Haslam's Freudian slip on that, by the way, during the press conference? He was talking about, when we go out and look for a new coach, and he meant to say general manager, and Barry had to correct him. And it was like, let's bookmark that for a few months from now.
Yep. Whenever the new thing that happens, the new power structure, whatever it looks like, whenever that takes over, if they find success, I have a feeling that you will not be able to write the story of that success without Barry Trotz's drafts and without acquiring the prospects that he has acquired. And so I don't think it is safe to say that it has been a very mixed bag in every sense of the word, very inconsistent and it's just total gray area. Free agent signings, really good first class, really bad second class. Brady Shea has a goal this year. Just want to point that out. And even some of the contract extensions, some of them super savvy, some of them terrible. The trades he's made, some of them really savvy, some of them not great. The thing that he has done very well is acquire draft capital and draft what appears to be a very good farm system. And so if that is a big part of a new core, or a new nucleus, or a new foundation, whatever you want to say, that the new organization depends on and wins because of, then you have to look back at Barry Trotz's very short tenure and say, he kind of did his job. Andrew Brunette is another example. Really, really overachieving year where he gets to the playoffs, really awful year, one of the worst in franchise history, and now a year where we get both. The worst team in the NHL for a month and a half, now one of the better teams in the league for the last month and a half. Even the coach is a mixed bag down the middle of, I don't really know if it's good or bad. So I think a lot of it does probably hinge on the draft picks. If they all hit, or half of them hit, and it is a part of a winning organization in the future, I think I'll say he did an okay job. If it is not, then I think you have to look at it as largely a disappointing 2.5 to 3 years.
Amen.
And it should not color or taint the vision of what Barry Trotz has meant to the organization, what Barry Trotz meant as a coach. There can only be one first-time coach in an organization's history, and they were one of the most, if not the most successful expansion franchise in the history of the league at the time of their launch, and underneath Barry Trotz, to draft and develop the players they had, to build the connection with the community, to teach this market about icing. I mean, they started from almost behind zero to build this market and this hockey city. And so Trotz is one of the 2 or 3 most important human beings in this organization's history. And that can be separated from, I think it was an inconsistent mixed bag of a general manager tenure. Yeah. And unless the draft picks and prospects hit, it will not be considered a success.
Yeah. I mean, you can't minimize his legacy to just his GM tenure. That wouldn't be fair. But, 2 things can be true. He can be a mixed bag as a GM, but he can also be one of the most important people in this franchise's history.
Yep. Kevin, I think this is the perfect way to end it. Trotz seems more like our transition GM between the old ownership group and the new majority owner. Like Poyle was ready to go, but Haslam wasn't ready to get the new GM. I technically agree with that. I think they need a fresh start, a reset of sorts. And if they bring in a new GM with a new scouting department and a new analytics department and a new development department and a new potentially even a new coach at the NHL and AHL levels, if the whole thing is new and they take Barry's draft picks and they go build a successful franchise, this is exactly what Barry Trotz was, the transitionary piece. That's what he was. That may not make a lot of people happy, but that's sort of how it feels. Emma, anything else? What am I missing? Any questions here? Is there anything you wanted to get off your chest on this that you have not, in terms of one of the craziest news days in the history of Predators hockey on Monday?
So I will, just to circle back to something that was mentioned earlier, I'm seeing now the NHLPA. So the NHL is not investigating. It's the NHLPA is reviewing the Preds hiring of CAA to conduct this search. That's because potential conflict of interest. It sounds like due diligence here, because there are regulations that say that an agency that represents players can't have a role in the front office or coaching, whatever. But CAA, I will say, this is just my initial reaction. CAA is such a massive corporation.
Yeah.
There are different legs, different arms to the business. It's not like, it's not like an agent is coming. It's not like in baseball, it's like Scott Boras is going to be searching for the next GM of the team. Like, that's not what's happening.
But it is bad to have. I mean, in theory, it could be CAA negotiating against itself when a GM and a player are in a contract dispute, and if they're both repped by the same agency, that can be concerning. And don't lie to yourself. CAA will push the people that it represents.
Oh yeah. But I mean, like, again, it sounds like more of a due diligence thing here than an actual, like, this is a scandal. Like, it just seems like, hey, we're just going to take a look, make sure everything's kosher, and then go about your business.
Jimmy Sexton, of course, is the big one in college athletics, who is the representative for Nick Saban, because Saban uses CAA. Look, I think this is hey, these are a bunch of people we know. Let's use these resources to kind of get us to a certain point. But at the end of the day, I want, hopefully, hockey experts and Bill Haslam making the final decision.
Well, I will say I am encouraged by the fact that Bill Haslam is seemingly admitting he doesn't know what he doesn't know, and like going to an external organization to do this.
Agreed.
So that's good in theory. We'll see what the result of that is, but I agree. Like, CAA is massive. They represent, coaches, they represent GMs, they represent players, they represent media members. Like, it's huge. So I don't think they're going to be in bed in the way that people seem to be spinning it up to be. Yeah. I will also say that report came from Frank Saravelli, who has a reputation of maybe over dramatizing certain things. Maybe
I don't know. He was saying that there was dysfunction in the organization, and then the general manager retired.
Yes, because this is Frank Saravelli, who got into a Twitter beef with Michael Bublé, by the way. So just
look, if you're gonna get in a Twitter beef, make it count. It needs to be either with JD Vance or Michael Bublé. Those need to be your Twitter feuds. Just get in if you can get in a fight with the vice president of the United States, that's a good use of time on Twitter. All right. You guys are awesome, and appreciate all you guys for being in the comments. Please share the show. Tell somebody about this. We're going to have more over at Lower Broad Hockey on this as well. You can follow Emma all over the internet also. So lots of good stuff coming for you guys around this. And honestly, it is here's my last point on this. I think fans should be cautiously optimistic. I think I believe that this is about a reframing and a rebranding and a new direction for the franchise. I do think this is an opportunity for that, and I think they're going to go that direction. There's a chance they don't, but I think it is more likely than not that they will. And if that happens, with a loaded farm system and a bunch of draft capital, some cap space in a good city with a great arena, you should be able to attract talent, and if you make the right decisions, build a winning franchise. A lot of ifs in there, Emma, but I do think this is the right decision and the right process and the right direction for that, even if it's totally bizarre how we got here.
And ending the show on non-Predators related, but important NHL breaking news, the Los Angeles Kings have acquired Artemi Panarin from the New York Rangers.
And there you have it. We were going to do another 30 minutes of breaking down the women's Olympic bracket. The U.S. women start tomorrow. They'll play not Czech Republic, but Czechia. They'll play Finland on Saturday. They'll play Switzerland on Monday, Canada on Tuesday, and then the men's team starts with Latvia, Denmark, and Germany next weekend. So the Olympics are here, and next weekend is when we will do our Olympic preview and break down all the rosters there. I can't wait for international competition. I'm very excited about it. Hope everybody had a great week. Be excited about this if you're a Preds fan. I do think that you're allowed to do that. I would just, cautious optimism is what I would do. For Emma, I am Braden. Thanks for listening. Thank you to all of you in the comments. And we'll talk to you next week. Peace and love, everybody.